Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Eliza. Following Peccatum, I guess it makes sense to do some of Ariel's solo work. So here's Odi Et Amo by starofash. So Peccatum was actually a collaborative work between Ihsan and his wife Ariel. And this was some of Ariel's solo work from much earlier. This album is from, what did this say? 2002. So, let's dive into this and see what starofash is bringing to the table today. Yeah, the snare work is really interesting. I really love that moody piano line. A lot of tension throughout here as well. Getting a little cluttered. Okay, so we got some chirping. That's gone now, of course. Using some destruction to bring us back in, though. There's an interesting looseness to everything. Love the MIDI flute. It's exciting because I have no idea where this is going. I haven't for the majority of this track. Alright. Creepy. How long was that? 7 4. I don't know why I was expecting a 4-minute song. Ah, man, where do I start with this? I guess the best place to start would be influences. I hear industrial in here. I hear symphonic metal, maybe? Just, it would be simpler piano and string and flute writing. And it's very possible that she was influenced from just, you know, string trios or something like that. Classical trios, classical quartets. But at least to me, this feels like a mashup of industrial and symphonic metal with a dash of something a bit more gothy or emo. I think. Let me look this up because I don't want to make this assumption if I'm wrong. So this came out in 02. And yep, nope, I ain't gonna make that. I was gonna bring up specifically Amy Lee's work with Evanescence, but that had not quite. I mean, Origin was out, but Origin was not a big album, and it's possible that Star of Ash had heard it, but I'm not going to assume so. I mean, Evanescence blew up in 03. It was very difficult to listen to rock without having heard that, but Um, yeah, this was recorded in '01. It's classified as a lot of stuff. Art pop, which I don't really get on this track at least. Industrial rock, which I've already called neoclassical. I've already kind of touched on that. But also dark wave and trip hop, which, yeah, I was going to bring up, is it Massive Attack? Is that the group I'm thinking of? And that this reminds me a little bit of that. It has the really moody atmosphere. It has the calm vocals on top of everything. It has the industrial drive in some sections. So actually, I think that might be a more appropriate place of influence. I don't know how old Massive Attack is, and I'm done doing research here because I don't want to spend any more time on that, looking at threads that may not lead anywhere. But yeah, so we get away from its comparisons and possible influences. We look at what the music's doing, though. There is a lot of tension in here, whether it is in the harmonies that the vocals do when they harmonize with themselves, or when it's a line that a violin plays against the vocals, or even just the grittiness of the guitars, and sometimes even internal dissonance when you listen to some of the quieter moving guitar lines that typically get pushed to the background in the larger sections that utilize heavy accidentals to create internal dissonance as well. It is a song that is eerie and moody, intense, pretty much in every moment, and it achieves it in several different ways, although the tension tends to be presented throughout the entire track. Another way the tension is held on to is a looseness of time, which is something I alluded to at the end of the end of the reaction there, but I didn't really dive into much. When you listen to individual rhythmic components, you'll notice that there isn't a fine rigidity of temporal temporal placement. And what I mean by that is even the very opening snare idea. And I pointed out, I said it's a very interesting snare rhythm. And that's because the pattern for the snare was inconsistent from bar to bar. The first time we had accents on very clear downbeats, and I think we had one offbeat. I think the offbeat of three was actually accented. But it gave a strong element of groove. But on bar two of this two bar phrase, we had pretty much no essence of groove at all. The snare hits were in illogical places, and it was something that feels all right but doesn't give away too much information about the song, or specifically about the song's timing. And so it ends up feeling a bit more loose, possibly even outside of time. You may have noticed, actually, I think it was bar three and four when I had started moving my head to the beats. Bar four, I was wrong. We actually got to beat one of bar five earlier than I expected, like by half of a beat. And I had to readjust, my body movement to line back up with that. And it took me a second to figure out what was going on. It's because that second bar's rhythm it's just very odd. And so this idea of temporal looseness is present from the very beginning. Even when we look at the vocal harmonies, we have two vocals going off at the same time at different pitches in order to create dyads, but they don't start and stop their syllables or their notes at the same time. When we look at counterpoint between the violin and the vocals, when they decide to land on a note at the same time, um, on the same beats, it's not always the exact same moment that one attacks and the other attacks. And so, if you listen to the general flow of the song, and it is in 4/4, and you break up each phrase into four beats, you will find a rigid pulse for the song to sit above, but none of the instruments really care about that rigidity. And so there's always this push and pull about where the downbeat is, if you want to read it that way. And that creates a tension because we are used to time being rigid. Every second is equidistant from the last, and they're all perfectly set. But here, every beat is kind of vaguely pointed towards. And like I mentioned, if you do the math, you could put a click track to this. But that precise beat is not present in the song itself. And so there's a almost an ephemeral element to the track where it's almost blurry at times. It's difficult to see, and I feel like if it was a physical object and I reached out to grab it, my hand would pass right through it. It is simultaneously present and not. The beat is simultaneously at whatever BPM it is, but it's also not. It's generally alluded to at that BPM, but not concretely stated. And so we have harmonic tension throughout here as well as rhythmic or temporal tension throughout the track. And this doesn't even bring into the idea of atmosphere and some of the moody, antagonistic, eerie sounds that inhabit the surrounding concepts of uh, of the song that also provide, well, eerie tension. They're definitely unsettling atmospheres. And so, even in the song's quieter moments, it's really difficult to feel at ease or even feel like you understand what's going on. I find it a little fascinating in that regard. Usually, those moments would be the ones where I'm given a chance to breathe, and this song, if I were sitting, would keep me on the edge of my seat for 7.5 minutes. How long was this? 7.25 minutes. Just because it never lets go of that tension. In fact, it does. Let me take that back. It does let go of the tension, but it's in moments of silence. Usually when we just have a snare hit, but even that snare hit has a reverb on it that gives it kind of a springy sound. So you might have a hard attack, but the release is vague. There's always elements of tension throughout here. And it's just so baked into the track to have a an anxiety element to it. Not anxiety, unknowing. That's what it is. It's unknowing. Now, there's a variety of instrumentation that's utilized throughout this in order to achieve the eclectic sound that it has. Already mentioned earlier, we have rock, industrial, and classical elements here, as well as trip hop. So we have everything sounds digital to me except the guitars. I could be wrong on that, but it sounds like we have digital drums, synthesizers. The flute was straight up MIDI. The violin was MIDI-ish. It could have been bad production on an actual recording of an acoustic violin, but it could also have just been a MIDI violin. No, I'm not gonna go either way on that one, but I will point it out that there's a possibility it was MIDI. And so, like I said, what I kind of feel out of this is the guitar and the vocals are there anything that are recorded acoustically. Well, not acoustic, physically. Everything else is digital from my perspective. Um, but we do have drums that feel industrial at one moment and then more for a minimalistic trip hop idea the next, and then booming, rock style drums the next moment. They're very amorphous. And alongside that, we have vocals that shift between eerie etherealness and powerful, full bodied vocals. And we have melody lines that accompany the vocals that could just be a simple flute, or it could be a flute and a piano and a violin, and we also have these atmospheric sounds around it. So we can make something that is very small and immediate and intimate, and then we can also make sections that are ridiculously large. And as I mentioned, no matter what type of concept we're forming with these, tension and unknowing are baked into them. It is kind of fascinating how frequently we shifted gears throughout here, and I think the plethora of instrumentation helps with that. The fact that we can have a piano and violin section to contrast, heavy rock drums and distorted guitar helps it allows Star of Ash to craft several different styles across the song, which help it feel lengthy. I do believe there is a verse chorus idea, and then we have something that feels a little more linear, and then we wrap it up with a return to one of the earlier sections. By that time, I had kind of lost. Um, I'd lost sense of the structure of the song, and I think we finished it out on a brand new section entirely. But even if we do repeat sections, I feel like there's micro differences between them where we don't actually repeat anything one to one, a perfect copy paste. There's always going to be modifications to it. And it makes the song feel incredibly dense, simultaneously shorter than it is, but also longer. This is only 7 minutes, but it also kind of felt like 10, but it also felt like it was over way early in the track, and it just, again, it's this vagueness. How long is it? Technically, if you break the science down, it's 7 minutes and 14 seconds, but in my experience with it, I couldn't tell you, and I'm usually pretty good with time. And so it turns into an interesting experience for me, wrapping all this up and what I think the song means. It's an interesting experience of moving between similarly linked concepts with fluid transitions that all explore a singular topic in multifaceted directions. The song makes me uneasy, regardless of what it's doing. Even in the more beautiful, serene sections, there is something about it that is off, even when we can start looking at some of the one time use ornamental stuff that I haven't even talked about yet, such as the heavy breathing over instrumental work. Um, I don't know what all it's supposed to represent. Odi Et Amo is Latin for I love and I hate. I'm going to check out the lyrics in a second, but I certainly heard I love you, I think, over and over and over. I'm going to call that a chorusy section, but I don't remember hearing the words I hate you. So I'm curious what we're going to see when we hit the lyrics, but is this, I mean, the song's title is about duality. Is that what the song is about as well? Is it why we bounce between large and small, serene and chaotic? Oh, there's another thing we got to touch on real quick because we're coming up on half an hour here. Um, haunting from an atmospheric and harmonic perspective versus haunting from a rhythmic one. Where does the tension lie? Why are none of these sections wholly positive? Why are none of them wholly negative? There's always a mix of ideas going on, and I wonder if that's the purpose there, is the duality between love and hate. This one I just want to touch on real quick. As I just mentioned, there are some chaotic sections in here that are just a hair bit too cluttered, and it's all production. I'm laying it all down on the production. I don't know who produced this. And I don't have that information. Oh, Christopher Rigg, as well as somebody else whose name I'm not going to sit here and butcher. Oh, actually, Ariel also produced it. Keyboards, programming. There was no guitar on here. Oh no, Isan did the guitar. They did have a drummer and percussionist. There's another guitarist. Einar Solberg makes sense. That's Leprous. Yeah, that's Leprous's lead singer and the brother of Ariel. Makes sense she's on here. There's also a choir. These are all for the credits for the album, though, so it's possible not all of these were in this song. But yeah, so 2002, and it looks like they actually had some producers here. So I'm curious what happened then. Because a couple of those larger sections were just way too cluttered, too much compression, not enough space for everything going on. I found it really difficult to hear anything. And maybe that was the purpose of it. There's clarity throughout most of the track, but not in that moment. Maybe the cluttered is supposed to feel like the world is crumbling in around you. It's difficult to make sense of anything. I don't I don't know. I'm trying to find artistic reasons for most of the things I dislike now. I find it better to have commentary like that than to just say I wasn't a fan of it. Let's move on. Um, but yeah, in retrospect, some of the cleaner sections were actually very clear as well. So it might have been intentional to make it exceptionally gritty and compressed and difficult to understand. Um, yeah, I think that's the last one. Let's hit some lyrics as soon as I can find this button. These lyrics are exceptionally minimalistic. There are three stanzas somehow. I heard a lot more than three stanzas, and they're all variations upon each other. And the first one says, "The son of shame, a transparent secret, and inside hellfire rays." The second says, "My red hands strangle you, and my lips are white, I love you to death." And the third says, "The son of shame, you choke from my white lips, and inside hellfire secret." Then there is a poem in what I think is Latin that Google did not translate very well. And I've kind of got nothing on this. Fortunately, there is a few paragraphs description about this track on sonichits.com, which I think I'm going to start checking out and adding it to my list of lyric sites because this is a fantastic write up. It is a song about unrequited love and loving someone so much but not getting it reciprocated. That it feels like the only thing you can do to escape this emotional turmoil is death. And the Latin poem is Catalyst Poem number 52, and it, when translated, is a poem which speaks to the desire for death as an escape from emotional pain. The act of dying is presented as a form of relief from the agony caused by, wouldn't you have to know it, unrequited love, something that is echoed in the song as well. Now, I'm not going to say that I can exactly see that angle in these lyrics. There's definitely an overwhelming love for this person. I don't get the unreciprocated aspect of it though. But how does any of this tie into the music? Well, if you've ever had feelings for someone who didn't feel that same way for you, you probably understand that emotional agony, especially if it happened when you were younger, maybe even particularly a teen or young 20, where relationships were kind of important to you. Maybe more so important than they are today. I don't know. I kind of grew out of that. Relationships are important to me, but they don't have the priority that they did when I was that young. I don't know if anybody else has followed that trajectory, but anyways, I've been in this situation and it sucks real bad. It is just, especially if they're a dear friend, right? If it's just somebody that you have feelings for and there's distance between you, maybe they don't know you, or maybe it's just what is it called when an acquaintance, right? But when you might interact with somebody, they're a friend, right? And you catch feelings and they don't, but you still want to keep that friendship going. It is heartbreaking daily. Um, and so having that constant tension in the song, no matter what, yeah, it perfectly fits the theme here. This is a song that is supposed to evoke discomfort, constant through various means. It is not always discomfortable. Is not always uncomfortable in the same exact musical way, but the discomfort is always present. And I think it's just a really great way to take this feeling and make a musical metaphor out of it. There's also the eerie tension throughout a lot of this. It is a sort of an angsty kind of song, especially in the heavier sections, and then we also have those really eerie, tense atmospheres as well, which could evoke more of the macabre. Which, if this is a song about maybe wishing for death as relief, having those eerier elements in the music would definitely line up with that as well. All right, those are my thoughts on Star of Ashes, Odi Et Amo. Let me know what you thought of this, if you enjoyed it, anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to correct me on, or just give me your own perspective on. Put that stuff down in the comments. Above that, in the description box, I don't know why I'm making funny fingers, there's a link to Linktree. You click on that link, it takes you here. You can find my music, ways to support the channel, the Discord server for the channel, and so much more. And above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, we still have a creator request today, which I'm pretty excited to get into. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. As usual, we're going to check out a full album, and then Sunday we'll have the live stream for the patrons. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.